The first thing I'm trying to do is not get swallowed by this couch. I feel a little Homer Simpson to the edges, like this. It's like posture and stuff. Welcome to episode 2 of the Anchored in Real Estate podcast. We're glad you're with us. I'm Johnny Dugan, joined by my co-host, the anchorman himself, Cody Chembars. And we're going to go into today about how to get off the fence. We're talking about one way or the other. In real estate, in our last episode, we talked about some pent-up demand. We know there's a lot of people that kind of want to get in, either into real estate or into homeownership. There's also a lot of people that their lives have moved on, and so they need the move. And we know this, as realtors, we understand the cycles. Mm-hmm. We understand that the cycles are every 5-ish years. Most people have some move for some reason, right? Yep. And so, but a lot of those people that would normally be making real estate decisions are holding back for one reason or another. So we kind of want to talk about what those are and kind of what those reasons are. And we're going to tell you like whether it's a concern you should definitely hold on to, or if it's a concern or a reason that we can ease that. Yeah. So we kind of see it as, if you're on the fence and you're trying to decide, do I move or buy? That's really the question. Is now a good time to buy or to move? That's kind of the question that we like to answer. And we tipped on this before. We're not the kind that's like, it's always a good time to sell. It's always a good time to buy. That's not the type of realtors we are. Yeah. We're going to tell you if you're in this position, you should. If you're in that position, you should not. Yeah. And so, because it's not always the best time for you to be buying or selling. And that's what we'll get into. So for the people, the first kind of category I want to cover is for the people who are just waiting to buy because they just don't know kind of how to get into it or really how to get rolling. And this is what we talk about internally all the time. What's the very first thing you should do if you're considering buying or moving? Yeah.
Well, and I don't want to skip over the fact that you just went on camera and on a podcast and announced that we're not the type of realtors that are out to take advantage of people. And sure. There are realtors in the market that are just worrying about their line in their pocket. So
we know them.
Right, and we know them, but don't want to skip over that because sure. That's huge. That might help someone get off the fence just knowing that there are actual realtors in the industry that want what's best for the client and not what's best for their wallet or their pocketbook.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
offline we have stories.
Okay, I'll go back to your question now. So what's the first thing? I mean, obviously the first thing that we're promoting is to have a conversation with a lender. Mm-hmm. Why do we want to have a conversation with the lender? Why? Because...
Why do we start with the lender, not the agent?
Right. Well, I want to go look at houses.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And we've both been doing this for a long time. We know what happens. We know that the real estate process is highly emotional. Mm-hmm. Highly emotional. Mm-hmm. Because people get excited or they're afraid that they're going to make a mistake or buyer's remorse, right? We've seen all that. Yeah. We've counseled people through that. But why do we want to start with a lender? One, because you need to know what you can financially afford.
What you can afford.
Not what you qualify for.
2 different numbers.
Not what you qualify for. When I bought a house as a teacher, I remember and we were living off of like $40,000 a year. My wife was stay-at-home mom, and I qualified for $250,000.
Right.
On $40,000.
Yeah.
Or $40,000 a year. And so I remember thinking, wow, well, should I go out and spend that?
Right.
No, I didn't need to in that time, right? I ended up purchasing at $157,000.
Yeah.
Which in 2015 at a 4.25 interest rate was $950. As much, actually it's equal to what I was paying for a 2-bedroom apartment with a garage.
Right.
Okay, so that's a little bit of my testimony, but why do we want to start with a lender? Because you need to know what you can afford, right? And a $300,000 house at a 6.5% interest rate may be out of your budget, may be unaffordable, may be unattainable for you and your current,
or surprisingly in your budget,
or surprisingly, We've had people go both ways, but you want to start there because they're going to look at everything that you've got. They're going to look at your debt to income ratio. How much debt do you have, right? And another thing that we didn't cover on the first episode of the podcast is, there are debt to income ratios that lenders and investors look at. Like FHA, for example, is low 50%, 51, 52% debt to income. So if you have over 52, 53% debt compared to your income, you're not going to qualify.
And I'll preface this to say, you don't need to figure that out.
Right.
As the consumer, as the potential buyer, you don't need to go, oh, well, let me do the math for it. No. That's what the professional is for, because they're going to throw your number into a special piece of software and it's going to spit out, what you could qualify for and what that payment's going to be. And that's generally what most people are kind of going to focus on, whatever that monthly payment is. Make sure that we'll make sure, as your advisor, to make sure that monthly payment that the lender's giving you has your principal, your interest, and your insurance. Right.
And property taxes.
And property taxes, right. PITI. So we'll make sure it has all that. So you have the big chunk and you can go, is that a nut roll I'm comfortable with? And the answer, if the answer is yes, and that's an affordable number for you, then we start looking at homes where that payment matches the value of the home. Or less. If we don't encourage being house rich and cash poor. We do encourage home ownership, of course, but we never encourage, overstretching your payment. But what we see, and you've seen it, and is, look at it this way. You're setting yourself up for heartbreak. When you start looking for a home, because you've run some numbers online. Google's a great resource and all that, but it won't dial it in for you payment wise, because Google may not know what the local tax rate is. They're not going to know what the local homeowners insurance rates are. They'll throw a stab at it, but you're going to say, oh, I feel like I can afford this. I'm going to go look at houses like that. I'm going to find the one that we just love. And then we're going to throw our stuff at the lender, and then they're going to say, I'm sorry, you can't afford that. And that is heartbreaking, and we've seen that. And that's where it's way better to make the sacrifice early and go, I'll go with one less bedroom. I won't look at the homes I can't afford.
That's right.
That drive you, that will just make you disheartened in the whole process.
Right. And then you'll enter the market, or think you're entering the market to purchase, and then you quickly exit. And I saw that a lot in 2020.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that combined with the multiple offers. But starting with the lender, and the big thing, or the big question that a lot of first-time homebuyers at least ask me is, well, will it hurt my credit?
Right. Oh yeah, great question.
Right. And so, the lenders are not doing hard credit pulls. Just to get you to figure out an idea of where you're at ballpark-wise financially.
You can run your numbers with a lender, get all your figures, and not bang your credit report. I'm telling you that directly.
That's correct.
Now, when you go to get the mortgage, yes, because you've found a house and all those things. But the pre-qualification and pre-approval part, no, they don't ding your credit.
That's right. So start with a lender.
Right? I emphasize that because how many people have you said, I'm not going to talk to a lender because I don't want to ding my credit. So they literally just put the whole process on pause.
Yes.
Because of a concern that doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. Right. Now, prior it did.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
And then we had all of these, mortgage companies, actually really the credit score companies were selling the data to these lenders that were paying for this list of all the people that had their credit pulled.
Yeah.
And then that's, and there's policy that's coming out in 26 where the credit bureaus are not allowed to share that information anymore.
Right.
So, huge win for that. But not to digress, start with a lender, right? And again, with it being an emotional process, we're getting we're getting some of those hurdles out of the way. Like you said, we don't want to go show them a $500,000 house when they're only qualified for 300.
Right.
Their expectations are set at a $500,000 house.
Right.
And a $500,000 house is not the same as a $300,000 house. So, we do it the right way. Some agents will go out and show houses. Yeah, hey, I see this house. Can you go show me? One of my first qualifying questions, as I know yours is where are you at in the financing process? Or how are you purchasing? How do you plan on purchasing?
And let me take one step back. We're saying step one is to get, talk to a lender and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Your step one can be find an agent or hire your, somebody that professional, all that stuff. Trust me, we have lenders that we have relationships with, and we'll find one that's right for you. So you can start with an agent. You don't have to come to me with all your financial ducks in a row.
Correct.
I can help you set that up.
Yeah.
But once you call me, the first step is going to be, let's get you plugged into a lender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think, going back to the topic of this video, how do you get off the fence? Well, you're straddling the fence because you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. Great point.
And so, if you go and get this out of the way, hey, I can afford a 300,000 or 350 or maybe $500,000. Well, then all of a sudden you are getting off the fence at that point.
Right.
Or you're saying, either way, you're getting off the fence and entering into the market, in the real estate market, to purchase with the intent to purchase, or you're saying, you know what, it's not what I want right now, or there's not a lot of inventory in that price point. I'm going to continue to be in preparation mode in order 6 months, a year down the road.
That's right.
To be able to enter the market and purchase.
That's right. Yeah. The other element is timing, and people wanting to time the market. And that's typical. I mean, I've seen it for 20 years, the prediction of a dip, or I'm going to wait, and all the things. But the timing of the market, of the real estate market, it's just like timing the financial market. You're trying to time the Dow. And, our last episode, we talked about the crash and, ultimately why that's not happening. And but the analogy I give for getting off the fence and worried about the market is, you had mentioned it, there's like a 100-year cycle of good real estate, 2008 being the anomaly. We talked about those reasons, but the analogy is, you start working, you've got a good job, and you have an option to start putting away for your retirement. What's every single financial guru going to tell you? When to start saving for retirement? As soon as you can. As soon as you possibly can afford it.
Yep.
Okay. And even if it's $50, because there's all, just the math and the compounding and all that stuff. And nobody argues that. Nobody argues, even if it's in a recession, you start saving in retirement. Even if it's an off year, or even if the market's super high, nobody's going to say, that's still a little too high, you should wait till next year. No, you start getting into the market now and let that start working for you. Yeah. Real estate is exactly the same, because once you're a homeowner, people rarely go with homeownership and then go back to being a renter. It rarely happens. It can. Life happens. But generally speaking, probably 90%, you buy and you're a homeowner for a long time. Yep. So you're a holder of the real estate stock, if you will, for a long time. So if next year it dips next year. But you're not moving next year. Right. Market recovers in a year or two. If there's a dip, which we're not predicting, I'm just saying, when you're trying to say, I want to time the real estate market, it's much more likely that in that year or two that you're trying to time, it's simply that same home is going to be more expensive. Yeah. And granted, and we've talked about this, we are not sensationalists saying buy, but statistically, realistically, the real estate market goes up some, single digit percentage per year on average forever, with some modest corrections over time. But it's just like the stock market, and the financial market, and it's saying, well, I'm not going to start saving for retirement for 2 years because I think we're in a recession, because I don't want to lose money. No financial person would ever tell you to do that. Right. Now, how much home do you buy? You buy what you can afford, and you don't start until you can afford it. Mm-hmm. So if you're eating beans and rice because you're putting too much money into your retirement, That's not right either. So you wouldn't do that with your home. I've been house rich, cash poor. It's not where you want to be. Your home will start falling apart. You'll have deferred maintenance and all the things.
Yep.
You want to have a payment that is something you can comfortably afford. But as soon as you can, that's the time to be getting into the market from a timing perspective.
Yeah.
That's how you know to get off the fence, when you run those numbers at the lender, and then you're comfortable with that number from an affordability for your family.
Yeah. Well, I think too, as you were talking, it is like the stock market. It's the real estate market, stock market, right? My grandfather invested in stocks back in the 70s, and he wasn't concerned about what the Coca-Cola or Walmart stock was doing day to day.
Right.
Because he bought it and held it, right? And like you mentioned, a lot of people are buying real estate. They're buying a home and they're holding it for 5 to 7, 10, 15. I mean, I've been on listing appointments. Someone's been in their house 30 plus years.
Yeah.
Think about the equity.
Right.
Were they worried about what the market was doing 20 years prior to that? No. Maybe they considered selling. But at the end of the day, someone that's in the home for 5, 7, 10 years, they're going to receive appreciation.
That's it.
3 to 5% annually on average for the last 100 years.
Right.
3 to 5%. Right. Now, someone could argue you can get 8, 10% in a mutual fund or something, in the stock market, but it's volatile, right? Real estate, and let's go to the hypothetical, right? Let's say someone bought tomorrow and there was a more major correction, or we saw house prices come down a little bit. What's that consumer going to do? Are they going to turn around and sell it in 6 months?
No. Lose the money? No.
What are they going to do?
Ride it out.
They're going to ride it out, right? Because it's cyclical. Just like the stock market, you've got a bull and a bear market, right? Real estate, you've got highs and lows, right? Typically heading into October, November, December, holiday time, we're going to start seeing that decline, right? January, February, we're going to start cresting out of it. March, April, now we're going back to that top of the climb. I like the roller coaster reference. So, timing it, if you wanted to get a deal, I would say buy during the holidays.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you're trying to time things and you want the deal.
Yeah. Yep.
The stats will show you. We can show you the stats every year. It's a heartbeat. Highest values in the summertime, lowest where sales price, or all stats say the best time to get a decent deal. You were talking a little off, a couple percent or so. Yeah, it's during the holidays. Yep. But if you're thinking I'm waiting for that crash or that dip or that whatever, it's like trying to time the market, and there'd be a lot more billionaires if the markets could be timed.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That.
Yeah.
So we talked in the last episode about pent-up demand, and this is another thing about timing the market, or trying to time things up, and that is we have a huge uptick in population, but statistically we've had a drop in total number of sales. And when you have a separation of the population going up and total sales going down, there's a lot of people with pent-up demand. There's a lot more people ready to move that are on the fence because they're trying to decide, is this the right time to make that move, and they're trying to time the market. And what people need to understand about getting off the fence or making the move as soon as you can afford it is, because of the pent-up demand, as soon as anything with the market shakes loose, whether it be a drop in home values, like some people are predicting, and or a drop in interest rates, that pent-up demand, which we know exists, that pent-up demand will all be jumping in at the same time. So what we see in the springtime, when the market typically heats up, then we'll see multiple offers again all of a sudden. And we see this every year. And then it kind of tails off. Well, and that's in a market that isn't being influenced so much by rates. Values have been pretty flat. Rates have been pretty flat. This is just a cyclical, seasonal push. And we see more people, and then we see competition. If the market were to correct to a point, or to fluctuate to a point that generated a little more demand, lower values or lower interest rates, there's a lot more people ready to pounce.
Yep.
And so if, let's say the Fed's cut it by 1%, everything drops from 6.5 to 5.5. We know without a shadow of a doubt, the plug's going to come out of the dam, and there's going to be a bunch of new buyers. Maybe not all of them, not all the pent-up people, and we'll talk about some of those reasons why. But if you're waiting for that interest rate, so are a million other people.
That's it.
Waiting for that drop.
That's it.
And so that's, again, not sensationalizing, saying, hey, buy tomorrow. Simply saying, if you can afford it and you've run those numbers and that part looks good, there's no other good reason to be waiting.
Right.
From a decision-making perspective. Because the longer you wait and that correction you're waiting for, there's 10 other people that would love to have that same house. And now you'll be competing with them when that correction happens.
That's it.
Yeah.
Johnny, I just had this conversation, first-time home buyer, financial advisor. Okay. So he knows, he tracks the data, he tracks the,
Right.
what's going on with real estate and then obviously the stock market. And he reached out to me and said, hey, I want to buy a house. I said, man, you're in a perfect time right now.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, I'm not being sensationalist. I'm not selling him anything.
Yeah.
He knows, like, he's an educated consumer
Yeah.
because he's in the financial world. And so we were looking at, single family residences, houses, and townhomes. We ended up finding him a townhome in a very nice community that I sold brand new. Mm-hmm. And, we go to the seller, and she is $10,000 less than all of the other competition in this neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Okay. It says Oakwood. And my buyer said, hey, I want to ask for concessions. I want to ask for some closing costs. I said, great. This is the market to do it. Mm-hmm. Found out that the seller needed to move. Mm-hmm. She's already has the house under contract. Mm-hmm. That's why they're being drastic.
Right.
And we submitted an offer, full list price. Mm-hmm. So we'll just round up to 320, mm-hmm. 319, 700. We asked for 6% in concessions, mm-hmm. $20,000. Mm-hmm. And very short due diligence. I mean, overall, the structure the terms were good.
Right.
But $20,000 in concessions.
Yeah.
The seller accepted.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, fun fact, this house appraised for $5,000 more than what we're under contract for.
Okay. Yeah.
So my buyer now saved $20,000 of his own money, because that closing cost can go to your lender, it goes to the attorney fees. He's even buying the rate down.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So he is mid-fives because he used the seller's concession to be able to buy the rate down.
Right.
Now his goal is 3 to 5 years. He's either renting it or we're going to flip it and we're upgrading.
Yeah.
But like getting off the fence, like this topic of getting off the fence, this client decided that it was time, right?
Right.
He was paying rent. He was paying more in rent than he is going to be paying for this house.
Right.
That is going to appreciate over the next 3 to 5 years while he owns it.
Right.
So
is it going to be worth more in 3 years or 5 years than it is now?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's just it.
It will be.
Right. And he could afford it.
He could afford it.
And that's the key.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how do you get off the fence is you make that decision, and it's no different than anything in life. How do you get off the fence about being healthy? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you and I both could do a whole podcast on our health.
Yeah.
Right? And you look very svelte, and I'm down 70 pounds, so it's But you have to make that decision, and it starts by educating yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
And the pent-up demand is real. I mean, we have clients that we've stayed in touch with and that we've nurtured that, year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when we met them, they weren't ready, but they were in preparation. They were in that season of like, I'm going to get myself ready. And when those interest rates do go down, you are going to see, I don't think it'll be a COVID-like situation again, because that was absolutely nuts. Right?
Yeah.
That was wild. But I do think that what's going to happen is we're going to have more people enter the market. These sellers, where there's right now the state of Georgia is like a 5.6 month supply.
Right.
This whole state
The
of
whole
Georgia.
state. Yeah.
Dawsonville's running just under 4.8 months.
Yep. Just
okay. So, what does that mean, and why are we talking about that? Well, when we get to that 6-month supply, it's like a balanced market.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's balanced.
yeah, buyers and sellers, they have to work together to come and get a deal.
Old school, straight up balanced.
Yeah.
Trying to sell a house, trying to buy a house.
Yeah.
No built-in leverage one way or the other.
No. And what we're coming out of, though, was a 2 to 3 month supply, sometimes even less than that a few years ago. And what did that do? It caused multiple offer situations. It caused houses going over asking price. It caused sellers taking advantage of buyers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so now I'm making all this content that says, buyers, you can take advantage of the sellers.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, come into the market.
Yeah.
Come in and ask them for closing costs. Come in and ask them for 5, 10, 15,000 off the list price.
Yeah.
Because there are sellers right now in this market that need to sell. They need to relocate.
Right.
Have you noticed when you're showing properties that these agents are reaching out to you hours after you show? Hey, Johnny, are you interested?
Yeah.
What's your client think?
Right. But that's how it was. And that's how it that's how it should be.
It's how it should be, right? This was the 2018, 2019 market.
It used to be, I list my house for $500,000 knowing it's like, anything you offer up for sale, it would be, I'm listing it for $5 because I know it's not quite worth that, but I got to start high so that somebody will come in a little bit lower, and then maybe offer some concessions and that kind of thing, and then I'm gonna settle a little bit under that. And that's kind of how that's the standard buy anything buying from person to person. There's always buying a car, there's always a little negotiation. It's always kind of built in, where for a while it was the other way. It's like, this is my starting point, this is like my auction starting point, and then we'll just see who gets the highest bid. And that it flipped the script. But again, that was an artificially generated kind of situation. So the way things are right now, granted, this isn't huge corrections. Like, the home values are still there, but sellers are saying, okay, if I need to grease the skids with offering concessions, and let me explain why this is so helpful, why the concession is so helpful. It's because, as a buyer, one of the hardest things to come up with is that down payment. So if you go, hey, if you're talking about, I'm on the fence because I can't save up $50,000. I can't get there right now. And inflation's real. And so why are concessions important? But you don't necessarily have to crush the top sales price. And that is, I need to come to closing with less cash to pay for close, because you can't finance closing costs. You can't finance attorney's fees. You can't finance some of those things. And so when the seller can give a concession, and like you said, to even help with the interest rate a little bit, the seller wins because they sold their home that they bought 8 years ago, and it's doubled in value.
Yeah.
And then you win because you've gotten in with less cash in hand when you go to closing.
Yep.
And that's why balanced markets are fair, because seller wins, they've sold a home at a good price. You win because you didn't have to save up for 10 years to get into the home. And I'm not talking about 0% down programs. I'm simply saying that's another reason why to talk to a lender first, is to understand what closing costs look like and how much you need to bring to closing. And that's another thing that just kind of often gets overlooked. You're just like, I can afford that monthly payment, but how much does it actually cost to get there? Yeah. And right now, sellers are offering concessions so that they can get the price they want, but they're offering that towards keeping the initial cash for the buyer at a minimum.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you'd mentioned the 50,000, and as we come to a close on this episode, and stay tuned for episode 3. But a lot of times, in going back, how do we get off the fence? A lot of buyers think that they need 20% down to purchase something.
That's right.
And it's like, no.
Yeah.
We've done video after video. Like, you don't need 20% down to purchase a piece of real estate.
No.
Maybe land.
Yeah.
20,
land
25%.
Land, second homes, stuff like that. But if you're getting into it, certainly first-time home buyers. And, 3% is relatively standard on FHA. Like I said, up here, there are some 0% down programs.
Yeah.
Actually, let me take that back. It's not a program. It's a standard HUD lending product. It's not, there's a little bit of income limitation to it.
That's right.
But other than that, it's, there are ways to get in, and, these aren't like, knee knocking lenders.
Where this is a government-backed loan.
It's a government-backed loan. USDA is what we're speaking of specifically.
Yeah.
But those are, they're the bottom line is when you're talking about getting off the fence and how much cash do I need, when you talk to the lender and you talk about your area, they can say, this is what you would need to close. And it also says when you go to look at homes, you can afford this payment so long as you get a little concession so that you don't have to, whatever cash you do have for your down payment or for your closing costs, then you kind of roll that into the deal.
Yeah.
So it's understanding all that. So getting off the fence. Step one of the grand process is understanding what you can afford. You can start with your agent and they can lead you to a lender. You can start with a lender and then that lender is going to lead you to an agent either way. But understand that you need to know what you can afford first. That will avoid the heartbreak and that will set you up for success. As far as timing is concerned, it's about getting in when you can afford it.
Yeah.
Start as soon as you can afford it from a timing perspective. And then, you hire one of us and, we walk you through the exact steps and we advise you.
That's it. We advise you. We're not here to make decisions for you. We're here to say, hey, this is a potential hurdle, pitfall.
That's it.
This is what we see. But at the end of the day, they would make that decision.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah,
that's it.
Yep.
All right. Like and subscribe. The next episode, we're going to talk about golden handcuffs. We're going to see what all that means. Otherwise, look to see you in the next one.